So to get started, let me introduce our speakers. We have Susan Orenko, who is an accomplished photographer and ran flat file galleries in this space for, I believe, 10 years, 9, and is now an independent curator and consultant. She's also on the CAC board and is a wonderful person to work with. We have Erin Fowler, who has spent a lot of time as a gallery director. She worked for Richard Gray Gallery here in Chicago, and now she is a director for an independent collector, right? Okay, excellent. And on the far end, we have Tom Drugan, who is with Visible.me, and he has done a lot of marketing work for some big companies, and the names of them have totally escaped me right now. But he is really going to be able to talk to you a lot about marketing yourself, your brands, and your work. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over. We'll start with Susan and Erin, and they're going to get into more of the artistic portfolio details.
Maybe get a read of the audience.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. So before we start, they asked that I poll everybody to see who here is would consider themselves an emerging artist. Okay, good many of you. How many of you went to an art school for an undergraduate degree, for a master's? Okay. How many of you are painters? Okay. Any photographers? Okay. Sculptors, fiber artists, metalworking, jewelry making? Excellent. Is anyone here a full-time artist? Okay. We've got a couple. Does anyone here teach art as their job? Okay. And is anyone here coming back into their art career after taking some time to do another career? Okay.
We were going to originally start with sort of your web presence, but since we're having technical difficulties, we thought, no, it's okay, but we thought it would be a good idea to find out how many of you already have websites. Okay, great, that's the majority of you. And how many of you are here to hopefully figure out how to build a website or improve your website, or, okay. I think Susan and I agree that nowadays, especially in big cities like Chicago, the days of coming to a gallery with an actual fold-out portfolio with your work are pretty much over. Almost everyone is consulting the web to see your work before you even enter the picture. You know, if they've heard your name or they meet you or they're interested in you, they're going to go to the web to learn about you and your work. So that will be, I guess, the focus of what we talk about today, since many of you, it seems, do have websites or want to have websites.
How many of you feel like your websites are effectively bringing people to your work? Oh, I saw a couple really go up fast. Good job. Have any of you sold work through your website? Yes, a couple people. Awesome. That's fantastic. Okay. Yeah, the internet is a tool that is astonishing for artists. You can really find anything you need. Anyone can, but for artists particularly, because it's visual, it's really an incredible thing. We were meant to talk about networking, and if you want to take notes, I'm just going to go through a list of things that we thought of, and we can both, you know,
Sure.
go back and forth. We thought we would do this sort of as a dialogue. Of ways to network with other artists, because other artists are probably your best resource next to the internet, and they're kind of tied together. So, number one way to network for artists is belonging to membership organizations. CAC, Chicago Metal Arts Guild, Chicago Photography Center, ASMP if you're a photographer who does, you know, photojournalism. Any membership organization that caters to your group, to the things that you do, is going to help you to network. There's a wonderful group. It's called Women's, I'm sure there are groups like this for other things, Women's women's photography forum or something that I belong to, and it's unbelievable. Everybody posts their questions, and everyone else answers them. There are hundreds and hundreds of women in this group, and that's all online. They're from all over the world, and those things are there. All you have to do is Google what it is you're looking for, and you can hook in with groups. You can hook in with chat rooms and blogs where you can get your questions answered and help each other out. And often if you type a question in Google, you'll literally stumble into 100 blogs that have an answer from some other artist, and it's really pretty remarkable what you can find that way. Do you want to address social networking a little bit more?
Sure, we can. I also want to touch on one more. In addition to the membership groups and the online component, the answering your questions, connecting with people, physically participating in those membership groups too is so important. Making friends with other artists, people whose work you respect and like, people who might be running in similar circles or you know, elliptical circles to groups you want to be in. Your artist friends will be your best resource because artists know about everything before everyone else, anyone up here.
Exactly.
So I can't encourage you enough to make friends with other artists and to do things with other artists and just be in communication with them.
You know, and another way to do that is to go to openings. Go to openings, talk to other artists. You know, that artists go to openings. It's very interesting to imagine that, you know, everyone thinks, oh, collectors only go to openings. That's not true. It's almost all artists who are at openings. A few collectors come. Collectors usually don't go to the opening. They go later, or they've gone before. So, you know, you'll meet other artists at art events because they're all looking for the same thing you are, and if you can connect with them at those events, you have, you know, you're way ahead of the game. I think, you know, anything that CAR, Chicago Artists Resource, does, or the Department of Cultural Affairs, go to those. You'll find a lot of Chicago artists at those that you can meet and begin to talk to and connect with, and, you know, you'll find you have a lot of similar questions and needs.
And lectures as well, museum lectures, things like that. If
Absolutely.
there's, you know, there's an artist lecturing or there's a small member preview or something, you will find like-minded people in those places. In terms of social networking, and I think this, I want to address this sort of in a more general way initially, and then as an artist. Your web presence, as I mentioned, is so important. It's the first way someone's going to learn about you. So it's really important that everything that you have connected to yourself as an artist or a person on the web is something you want other people to see. You know, you have to, artists are people in the world just like everyone else, and if you are putting things up on your Facebook or you know, MySpace page or whatever, and you're keeping it open for the world so that they can find your art, it's also important to think about what else you put up there every time you go on. Because it becomes more than just a resource for your person, it becomes a resource for your work and your life as a professional artist. So that said, I think that Tom will talk more about how the web really does work, but I know that places like Google and Facebook have really great response in terms of, for example, my name is Erin Fowler. If someone Googles my name, they're going to get my Facebook page perhaps before anything else. So those sort of things interact really well when someone's Googling you, so it's important to make sure you do have some content in those places so that people can easily find you. In terms of that, Twitter and some of the other social networking sites, I don't know that that's especially pertinent to being an artist, because being an artist is a visual thing, and Twitter is mostly textual.
But to lead someone to the new painting you just finished that you Twitter
Yeah.
about, you know, people know your website because it's on your Twitter page. So that's I know artists who do that. Just finished a body of work, and I've actually, as a curator, gone to look at things because I got tweeted about them. So you can push it into any arena you want, really. Yeah, I mean, you can make any of these things work for you. One thing I was going to say is don't put a picture of your face on your Facebook page or your MySpace. Put a picture of your work. Every time I post a new photograph as my profile picture, I get tons of feedback, and I've actually sold work that way. So, don't hide it in your Facebook somewhere. Put it up there. You have a new painting and you're proud of it, put it up there as your profile for that week, or, and change it often so people continually see new work from you.
And treat it, if you're using it in lieu of a website, or you're using it in addition to a website, treat it as you would your own website. Put captions on there, make sure people know what they're looking at. That's one of the most important things, I think, in terms of your web presence, is because you're not physically arriving in a gallery or in any other arena with a portfolio, you have to tell people what they're looking at. They have to know. Don't make them guess.
Size. Oh,
Size.
please. In everything you do, put the size on paintings. I can't tell you how many times I've juried things. There was a funny one with Marianne Dessen where we juried the first prize in the Beverly Arts Center's and biennial, I don't know, it was a biennial. And we got out there to go to the opening, and the thing was this big. It was all from slides. This is years ago, but it was all from slides. We didn't know. People don't know. And if it's, 8 feet by 20 feet, most people can't fit it in their house. So, the fact that somebody knows up front before they start inquiring about a piece of art, it's better to just, be transparent about size and, media.
Medium,
right.
Yeah, just document it as you would in any other capacity, just so that, people know what they're looking at, and use it, keep it professional, just like you would see at a museum or a gallery. Label it. If you want to be perceived as a professional artist, treat yourself like you already are.
Well done. That's well said. I think you can also find a lot of networking opportunities through showing your work. Co-op galleries, things like Woman Made and ARC, and galleries that are co-op are a great way to meet other people working in your media. Juried shows or unjuried shows, you're going to meet new people. Even if you only meet them online, sometimes you will only know people via the internet. Artists from other places. I mean, I have artist friends from all over the world because of Facebook. And, I've actually visited people in other countries because of that kind of networking. And I've shown them. I've brought their work in and had exhibitions that I curated because I saw their work, and we had dialogue on, things like Facebook. And classes, take classes when you have a chance. You'll meet people in classes like this, or continuing ed classes or whatever. And if those of you who went to art school, sometimes, especially if it was an art school or a big art department, alumni events. Not only hook up with old people that you knew in your class, but other artists will be at those things.
Totally agree. Do you want to give your presentation, or?
Do you want me to go, or do you want to take that break?
Yeah, and then we'll do our
And then we
portfolio
can-
part after, right?
I think that's a great idea.
Okay.
If it's working, I think we should take advantage of
I
that.
agree.
Yeah, for now.
Do we have, are there
sorry
any
about that,
questions
guys.
about networking, though, before we go on, that you can't wait until the end for? Is there anything? Yeah.
I have one question and concern. It has been pointed out to me by a Facebook user, a young one, who had said that if you post art on Facebook, the art is not copyrighted. And that she advised that never to do that.
Well,
so this is a direct conflict to what I had done.
But the file will be so small, nobody can do anything with it. What are they going to do, print it this size? You just take a 72 DPI photograph so that nobody could blow it up to any size that would be useful. And
Yeah, I mean, if you're worried about someone replacing it on the web, you're right. There's not much you can really do with that. But in terms of physical art.
No, I didn't mean the physical, but the image. I mean,
the image. Well,
It's a risk.
it is a risk. And actually, I know of a photographer who it happened to, and someone who knew his work, who had shown his work in San Francisco, actually contacted him and said, just so you know, there's a guy out there putting your photographs on his website, Jonathan Johnson. And this guy literally created a website with another artist's work. So there is that possibility. But I don't think you can drag from Facebook, can you?
Yeah, you can.
Oh, you can? Okay. Well, then maybe.
Yep.
Yeah, you can. The only problem with the watermark is especially in photography, I mean, in any art, it ruins it. It makes
Yeah.
it look terrible. I never wanted to even look at things that people sent me with a watermark on. So it's a tough call. You know, it's our best friend and it's our worst enemy, the internet.
There's
So-
something called Creative Commons too, which some of you may be familiar with. Look into it. That may protect you in some regards. It's sort of like an open source way to copyright your work.
Oh, cool. Creative Commons?
Creative Commons, COMMONS.
Commons, okay.
The work is copyrighted from the moment of creation,
Right.
Right.
so it's not a question of it's only taking the copyright. The problem is enforcement.
Enforce, exactly. You're not going to take them to court. You don't even, you know, in this case, Jonathan knows who did it because the guy is putting his name all over it. But in general, you know, you don't always know that. It's kind of like stock photography in that way. You know, you don't always get credit. I had photographers in the gallery who sold to stock, but stock never told them where it was. And I walked into a bookstore and Joe Gallo's, there was a huge display of probably 40, 50 books with a photograph that I had shown in the gallery. I mean, he sold it, he got paid for it, but he didn't know it was on the book. I called him up and told him. So there are those things.
There's some really interesting technology that Google and other people are working on where you can actually take a picture, upload it to Google or show it to Google, and they'll bring back images that are very similar. So that might be a good way in the
Oh,
future
how
to sort of take a look to see if your work is being copied anywhere else.
What is that called?
Fascinating. Yeah, what is that
I don't know the name of it, but
Wow, I wanna
it's
know
something,
that.
it's not available for the public use yet, but there's been
Oh, but it's
demonstrations and
great.
such.
Cool. Right. Well, when we were talking about, in the break, we were talking about networking, I realized I forgot to tell you something really important that I think is really important in terms of networking, and that is to create your own networking groups. You don't need to feel, you know, when we leave school, we're kind of adrift. We really don't have a lot of people. And you need to understand that it's not, don't be shy to do it, because there are several groups that are, now they're closed because these people got together and formed them, but a very big deal artists who still need to feel critique from others and running their work by each other. Working as an island doesn't do you any good. Because you don't know what the perception will be of your new painting or your new photographs or, you know, whatever you're doing. So there's a group called Stella, and they're actually going to, they do something called Art Cart, and they're actually going to be doing it at Chicago Photography Center in October. I think it's the 15th and 16th. It's that weekend, the Saturday, Sunday. You can, you know, get on the website for CPC and it'll be on there. And Stella is a group of really accomplished artists, women. Most of these groups are women, unfortunately, for you men. But Stella does Art Cart, and it's like anybody remember in Charlie Brown, Lucy gave advice for 5 cents? It's like that, though, because they thought, you know, here we are with all this knowledge about art, and you know, we're all emerging or established artists, and we can share with other people. And you literally go in front of them and you have a question and you ask it, and one of their members will answer it. It's a very cool thing. They also do internal critiques and things like that. There's a women's photography group that, you know, Barbara Crane, who's in her 80s, Terry Evans, the biggest names of women in photography are in this group. It's a closed group. But Barbara said, you know, use it as an example for people to understand that even at our level of showing all over the world in museums, we still need, you know, peer support and peer critique and discussion with, you know, people at our level. So, you know, don't be shy. Get out there and form a group if you can't find one, and bring people in that you know, that you meet at all these things we told you about to network at. So I just wanted to add that because I think that's a really good thing. And CPC has something called Wine and Critique once a month for those of you who are photographers. CAC did it for years, and they're talking about doing it again, where the public, any artist can just come and be in a group of peers for a critique, and it's a lot of fun. I used to facilitate them in my gallery for CAC, and it's really helpful. You know, don't be afraid to have your peers tell you what you're doing well and not doing well, what works, what doesn't. So that's it for that. So.